let me start by saying, please don't play this game. Let me just open up front by saying, wow. This is one of several games recently that I really was interested in, that I wanted to play, and that I then played, and I realized just how bad it was. And I'm starting to think I just don't have the ability to tell how good a game is until I'm actually there. Like, I was hyped. I was excited. I want to say last year during the Not E3, I actually covered this game among like 20 others. And I was like, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And that's when it was added to the list. Or rather, a lot of interest was put into it. And then it was like, hey, let's go forward with it. Yes, cool, awesome. Now, I know what you're going to say right up the front. You're going to be like, oh, you should have known better from an Age of Sigmar game. Having no real investment to speak of in Warhammer, that was a non-issue for me. So to be very, very clear, I don't care of the fact that this is the Age of Sigmar. That has nothing to do with anything. With one notable exception. I am going to admit something rather embarrassing. I actually thought Warhammer 40k was the original, and then Warhammer Fantasy was the thing that was tacked on after that. And I was wrong, obviously. But I thought that for a long time, because Warhammer 40k was the first thing that I was introduced to, because Warhammer Fantasy just didn't have a lot of exposure outside of the actual, the tabletop arena. So I was like, cool, Warhammer 40k, yeah. So my knowledge of Warhammer Fantasy was extremely lacking. Then we fast forward a little bit, and I played a little game called Vermintide with my friends. I also played it on stream. And then I was like, okay, this is cool. And I played Vermintide 2, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And then a game called Total Warhammer 1 came out, and I was like, this is neat. Then Total Warhammer 2 came out, we streamed that one as well. That was really good. And then, and this is the big one, Total Warhammer 3, which we did a full stream of not too long ago, actually, just about a year ago now. And that was an awesome game. Didn't actually like it, but that's very unrelated. Very awesome game. But here's the really important part. You know what Total Warhammer 3 did for me? It introduced the setting to me in a fairly well done way and made me interested in it. It provided enough information that I felt like I was getting bits and pieces of the lore and the world building, the characters, the setting, the precepts, the concepts. And I was with that. Now, a good video game that is based on a pre-existing franchise like that will do that. I bet you can think of several right off the top of your head where the game actually introduces the setting, the concept, the characters, etc., in a good way, and that made you interested in X franchise. Then we get to Age of Sigmar, Realms of Ruin. Now, I'd like to say that it did the opposite by putting me completely de-invested in the franchise and the setting. But it's more like it did the inverse. Rather than pushing me away from Age of Sigmar, the setting, it did absolutely nothing whatsoever. The only tidbits I was able to glean about the Age of Sigmar and how it works were from chat after I started asking questions that the game wasn't answering. Even the very, very first cutscene in the entire game is bonkers in how badly it's designed with regards to just setting up the basic precepts. Like just, what are we doing here? Okay, I've detected an artifact and we need to go take down that artifact. Okay. Who are you? Why are you? What are you doing here? How did we cross realms? What's a crusade? How do the planes exist? Like, isn't one of the main concepts of the Realms of Ruin being the different realms? But we spend the entire time in Swampville with, like, one brief excursion outwards. So, already the game just fails right out of the gate. I'm doing an absolutely terrible job of getting me engaged in anything. Also, I'm just going to say this, not a big fan of the Sigmarines. Just going to get that out there. The dialogue is bad. There's a lot of fake drama. There's a lot of really, really obvious writing and storytelling. The storyboarding legitimately makes no sense. It's some of the worst storyboarding I've ever seen. This is not a joke. I want you to imagine a typical cutscene where there's like two different parties, and it cuts over to them, and they're like, talk, 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 talk. And then it cuts over to them, and they're like, talk, 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 talk. But because the engine and cinematics and whatever of this game are so bad, these two people have to be on the same map, and that map has to be absolutely minuscule. So occasionally the camera, which is focusing on these people, will actually pan a little bit, and you'll see the other group, and they're like 10 feet that way, just hanging out. And the pacing of these cutscenes is it's hard to even explain. It's like watching a bunch of children who are doing a play but have forgotten their cues. Not their lines, their cues. So they're all like, oh, it's my line. Yes, prithee, on yon space, I just do this. And then they say their line, and everyone just waits awkwardly for a second, and someone else is like, oh, right, yeah, that's my turn, right. The voice acting is bad. The world building doesn't exist. The outro was really, really boring. By the way, the entire plot is... well, I shouldn't spoil, but I'll give you a hint. It has to do with chaos. So, okay, fine. That's all narrative. Who cares about the narrative of a Warhammer game? We're here for the gameplay, the RTS. Yes! And you know I've talked at extraordinary lengths about RTSs for many, many years, having been a big fan of them since Warcraft 1 and Command & Conquer 1, and I've actually reviewed several at this point in my life. So where's this sit as RTSs? This is one of the worst RTSs I've ever played in my life. And I've played Command & Conquer 4. I'm not being facetious. I'm trying to be a little bit energetic to try and make this a little less boring than this otherwise would be. I imagine me just going down your list. And so there's these options, which are dumb. They decided to add something called, well, this is my term, committal combat. If a unit gets engaged with another unit, it cannot disengage. Unless you do the flee thing. That's separate. So, kunk, there you go. You're stuck. Now, this has a lot of potential. There's a lot of things they could do with this that they didn't. What they did was they took an unrelated mechanic from an unrelated system and smacked it into an RTS without thinking about how to apply that to the real-time strategy. So it just sucks. Cool. Okay, that's neat. The units control badly. It's really hard to explain if you're not actually sitting down playing it, but unit control is the simplest way I think I could put that. The audio spam is insane. And it's not just the usual audio spam you get from RTS, like, yes, I will go there. Yes, I will go there. I think that enemy got the point. No, you don't get stuff like that. Instead, what you get is, we must capture this objective. It is the only way. We must capture this objective. It's the only way. Congratulations on capturing objective. We have just lost an objective. We must capture an objective. It's the only way. Over and over and over and over and over. The pathfinding's awful. In many cases, the pathfinding is so bad, this is not a joke, units had trouble reaching enemy units, as in like right here, like right next to each other, to then attack them, because melee was programmed wrong. I've got my list of notes right here, by the way, so forgive me if you see my eyes doing this thing. I'm not even going to get into that, like some of the more specific things, like it's got lazy difficulty, it's got unskippable cutscenes. By the way, it has unskippable cutscenes. Could you believe that in a freaking RTS? That came out like 3 months ago, by the way, as of this recording. This is a very recent game. I could talk about the food cap being minuscule. Food caps have been around for a long time, a very, very long time, actually, and for good reason. They want to limit the amount of units that are on the board at a specific time, and there's some strategic and tactical reasons for that. Cool. When I say there's a unit cap, it's like 14 or 20. You have... Oh, I should mention that each unit you have takes up more than one food. So in general, you're fielding a unit of like 8 or so units, something like that. Sometimes less than that. Usually less than that. Yeah, so really, really small food cap. But that's okay because the enemy has tons and tons and tons and tons of units and you don't really have an effective heal. Yes, that's exactly as frustrating. So it's okay, you can replace them. If you go gather resource nodes and bring in resources to then produce units. Oh, by the way, there's not really any base building. There's your unit producing, and then there's the things that allow you to gather resources, as if someone had seen Dawn of War and was like, that's a good idea, and had no idea how to implement it. I know I'm not going too much in depth here, because again, that's what the review's for. This is the summary. But trust me when I say this is like poor man's Dawn of War. Or Company of Heroes, if you prefer. Did I mention the difficulty curve is absolutely insane? We started on normal. We turned it down to easy, and then we started running into walls of difficulty. I am not joking. But it was the wrong kind of difficulty. It was the worst kind of difficulty. Because, let me get to the biggest problem this game has. This is an RTS where the enemy just has monster closets. The enemy just spawns units infinitely and forever. And that's your life. In a game where you have very small troops, where they move very slowly, where they're difficult to control, where it's hard to get them into combat with the enemy, where they're irritating to replace, the enemy just spawns units constantly and forever in multiple directions in multiple ways. And worst of all, because this is going to come up in the next game we're going to talk about, there's nothing you can do about that. They just spawn until you've hit a certain point in the mission. That's it. We hit level 3. And level 3 was already a triple negative map because of just some absolutely ridiculous, stupid crap. But then we hit level 4. We almost put the game down on mission 4. It's not a joke. Because I legitimately thought I wasn't going to be able to beat it. I actually legitimately thought I wasn't going to be able to get past it. The way I ended up doing it was by bugging the system out. So what I did is I very, very quickly grabbed a couple of resource nodes, built up my max pop army, which is harder to do quickly than it sounds. By this is all on a timer. And then ran around and very quickly recruited the new units that you can recruit on the map that it gives you, so I could go over population cap. And then I got lucky. And I'm just going to admit that. I'd love to take strict credit for that, but no. No, that was just a really, really, really frustrating mission. And it wasn't the end of the bullcrap. But my favorite thing is so many of the maps. Let's see here. We've got Mission 5, Mission 6. Let's see here. Looks like Mission 9. No, I'm reading that wrong. That might have been it, actually. I swear there was another one. They're all multiplayer maps. You know what I mean by that, right? It's just a skirmish map that happens to have a cutscene at the beginning and end. That's it. So no actual level design to speak of. Just to have fun. Then they have no build missions in a game where your units are slow and have... This is an aggressively bad game. A disgustingly bad game, if I might be so bold. This game scored a negative 171.56, which is ludicrous. Don't play this game. Next up, we're covering something that'll hopefully be a little bit better. A little bit better. A little game called Iron Harvest. I'll see you there.